My name is Bruce Schneier. I'm a faculty at the School of Engineering, working on privacy and security issues, cybersecurity program. It's my great pleasure to welcome Bruce Schneier to the CAIS seminar series and to York University in general. For those, anyone really working in cybersecurity and privacy, Bruce really doesn't need any introduction. He is a New York Times bestseller for 16 books now. I think there is a new one coming out, which is Rewriting Democracy, which I recommend you guys look at. He's also an author of hundreds of articles, essay, and academic papers, which is very cool. And he also runs a highly popular blog called Schneier and Security, which I regularly follow, so this is amazing to have you here. And you might have actually stumbled on his solitary encryption algorithm in the book of Neil Stephenson's of Cryptoconicon. Which is surprising, maybe not surprising, but that's how the listserv is called for cybersecurity here. And he's a fellow at Berkline Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University, a lecturer in public policy at Harvard Kennedy School, board member of multiple companies and foundations, including Electrical Frontier Foundation, Access Now, and the Tor Project. And he's an advisory board of EPIC, verifiedvoting.org, and he's a chief security architect for Interrupt Incorporated. So this is incredible. Bruce, welcome to York. We're really excited to have you and hear more about integrity in AI.
Hey there, thank you. So I am normally at Harvard Kennedy School, where I like to say I teach cryptography to students who deliberately did not take math as undergraduates. And I'm up here for the academic year at University of Toronto, at the Monk School, which is their public policy school, where I did the similar thing. And I have signed up for a second academic year at U of T, and then we will see what happens as things continue to deteriorate. So I'm in Toronto, and I'm happy to talk and meet with anybody who is thinking about sorts of things that I'm thinking about in privacy and security as relates to tech. As Jan mentioned, I had a book published in October. I should have brought a copy, but I forgot, called Rewiring Democracy, where I look at how AI is going to affect democracy. Mostly optimistic. It's not a book about deepfakes. It is a book about what happens when we can outsource cognition in various democratic systems and what that would look like. And thinking about AI and security has really led me to think about integrity. So I want to talk a bit, it's a small group, so I'll be a bit more informal. But I'm really thinking about what does it mean to have integrity in an AI system. And I mean that broadly, so that's not like, no tampering, more correct behavior you can verify. And the reason I'm thinking about this now is sort of two streams, both AI and Internet of Things, because we are now building systems that don't process data. We're building systems that act on the world. It's an AI agent, an IoT device, critical infrastructure, right? Computers that affect the world in a direct physical manner. And that's real different, because integrity failure is no longer my data got changed, it's the wrong thing happened, which is very different. And the wrong thing happened at scale, at speed. So security in this world becomes less about secrets and more about correctness. And I argue we're entering the age of integrity. And that's what I want to talk about. All right, so let's start with an example that maybe or maybe not is a security failure. So July 2024, there's a faulty software update from CrowdStrike, took out 8.5 million Windows systems around the world. Less than 1% of all Windows systems, but the impact was enormous. Airports, hospitals, call centers. I was stranded in Detroit overnight. Complete and absolute mess. Right, so was this a cyber incident? Maybe, right? It depends on your definition. There was no bad actor. There was no attack. It was a bad update pushed through a highly trusted channel that caused the outage. Right, so, but definitely an integrity failure. Right? Integrity failures that cause widespread harm are in themselves security events, regardless of intent. So to me, security is not just about stopping attackers, it's about preventing things that cause systems to fail. Right, so integrity. Everyone remember the CIA triad? Confidentiality, integrity, availability. Hopefully that was new for anybody. But we've built decades of security thinking around confidentiality and availability. And lots of good systems deal with both. We're not done by any means. But integrity's kind of been the long neglected middle child of the CIA triad. You go to the NIST definition. They have a pretty narrow definition: preventing improper information modification or destruction. Pretty basic. You look at other definitions, they'll include unauthorized and undetected modifications. They'll talk about deliberate and silent corruption. They'll add authentication into the mix. But I still don't think that's broad enough. When I think of integrity, I think of things like accuracy. Is the output correct? Completeness. Is anything relevant missing? Consistency. Does the meaning drift as data moves around, like in both time and space? Freshness. Is it current? Is it replayed or stale? Provenance. Where did the data come from? What transformed it? Semantics. Did the meaning change as the data moved across formats, across networks, across organizations? Accountability. Can we reconstruct what happened and why? And then the last one is recoverability. When integrity fails, can we detect it? Can we figure out what the damage was? And can we, this is I think important and hard, recover to a known good state? So to me, integrity is generally about correctness. Now, that's not just one control, right? It's sort of its overall system property. I don't think correctness is a single value. There's no single correct way for a driverless car to make a left turn, right? It's an envelope of constraints, invariance, of acceptable risk. And integrity is how you're going to keep a system inside that envelope and how you prove it stayed there, even under attack or under error or under drift. Integrity turns information into evidence, kind of like that phrase. Integrity makes IT systems trustworthy. I like that as well. So a lot of people don't think of it this way, but there are some primitive integrity systems in our computers right now. So the reboot process, right, returns a computer to a known good state. That is an integrity system. The undo button, right, let people recover from accidental mistakes, another integrity system. Integrity is making sure that data comes from a trusted source or sensor. So digitally signed data preserves integrity. Integrity is assuring that data doesn't change as it moves around. So anything that's detecting hard drive errors or file corruption or drop packets, those are integrity systems. Checksums, right, integrity system. And when I think about this, I think about a confidentiality where exposing personal data on a website is a confidentiality breach even if we can't prove anyone accessed it. I think failing to guarantee the integrity of the data is also a breach even if there's no deliberate manipulation. Right? So integrity breaches are malicious actions and inadvertent mistakes, which is kind of like CrowdStrike. I have a cup of tea now. I am a better person. Thank you. Like confidentiality failures, integrity failures can be silent. A system could be up and still be working, even though there's an integrity failure. And wrong can look plausible. It doesn't mean the car crashed. It could be a subtle shift in outputs or decisions. And we might not notice an integrity breach until after damage has happened, like a confidentiality breach. All right, so why is this important now? I said in the beginning, because the internet is changing again. So the emerging world, and I think of it as Web 3.0, the big shift is agency. Computers increasingly have right access to the world. And then the internet shifts from an information medium to a control plane for society. That's a big deal. It's IoT devices bringing lots of autonomy, smart homes, smart cities, smart power grids, smart manufacturing. AI agents will accelerate this because these are systems that don't just advise, they will act. They will be able to affect the world. So think of this as the automation of consequences, right? At machine speed, largely often with no chance of human oversight. So in this kind of smart, distributed, connected, autonomous world, integrity is now your foundation of everything else. Right? Sensors go from data sources to attack surfaces. GPS cameras, microphones, temperature probes, fraud signals, human feedback, anything that is input can be attacked. At the same time, actuators go from outputs to attack capabilities. So door locks, industrial control systems, trading systems, medical devices, approval workflows, anything that is output can be weaponized. And this is different. So without integrity, you have the wrong dosage, the wrong valve position, the wrong braking distance. So in this world that's coming, the lines between safety, reliability, cybersecurity are kind of blurry. And without integrity, the rest of security almost doesn't matter. Right? Encryption will secure corrupted data. Right? Uptime will amplify incorrect actions. And adversaries will manipulate this kind of stuff. Now, most modern attacks against AI are integrity attacks. Right? Putting a small sticker on road signs to fool a self-driving car is an integrity attack. Prompt injection is an integrity attack. Right? In both of those cases, the AI model can't distinguish between legitimate data and malicious commands. Right? And the attack succeeds even though the model is working. And you can argue it's working properly. So manipulations of the training data, the model, the input, the output, the feedback, they're all integrity attacks. And I can't imagine any kind of AI digital assistant without integrity. At the personal level, at the corporate level, at any level. Because if you think about it, there are two kinds of integrity failures. The first is when the AI does the wrong thing, right? It misunderstands the input, gets the answer wrong, right? Something about the way it's been created, the way it's been trained. That's one failure. The second is when an adversary deliberately manipulates the AI to do the wrong thing. And any AI that's used in an adversarial environment, that feels like all of them to me, will be vulnerable to that sort of attack. And so imagine an AI being used as an advisor to some international trade negotiation. Right? The negotiator has human advisors and AI advisors. Or maybe as a political strategist or a legal researcher, some sort of advisory role. There will be an incentive for someone to hack that AI. Maybe it's a government, maybe it's a criminal, maybe it's some hacker group. And actually it doesn't matter how accurate or capable or hallucination-free the AI is. If you can't guarantee it hasn't been hacked, it just won't be trusted. And like we know this, at the end of the day, AIs are just computer programs. They're written in software, they're running on hardware, they're living on networks, they're operated by users. Everything we know about computer security applies to AI systems along with all the new things, the new AI risks. Right? So how do we get these things to be trusted? And trust is the key here. A lot of people write about trustworthy AI, trustworthy IoT devices. I've given talks about trust. To me, at this way of using the word, it's about reliability and predictability, which really is about correctness, which is really be about integrity, or more importantly, demonstrable integrity. All right, so more about integrity. I think of it as having 4 distinct parts: input, processing, storage, and output. Sorry, input, processing, storage, and context. Sorry. So the first is input. Do you trust what goes into your system? So this is the authenticity and quality of the data entering your AI system. So spoofing, replay, data poisoning, data laundering, right, these are all attacks. And defenses are, I mean, you could think about them: authenticated sensors, right, signed telemetry feeds, redundancy, sensor fusion, sanity checks on the input, plausibility constraints, cross-checking sources. And so a lot of ways we know how to do this, right? You know, when this fails, bad things happen. The Boeing 737 MAX crashes were integrity failures, right? So there was a sensor, it was a altitude sensor, fed bad data into an automation that repeatedly pushed the nose down. Right? That's an integrity failure. Second is processing integrity. Does your system transform inputs to outputs correctly? So anything that protects, and processing is general, so it's code, it's models, orchestration, pipelines, business logic. This is, I think, a lot of traditional computer security lives here. You think of supply chain compromise, that's that's here. So memory corruption, runtime tampering, all that stuff is processing integrity. Defenses, right? It's things like memory safe code, sandboxing, least privilege, runtime monitors. Failures here, often spectacular. I like to talk about 2 of them, both in space. 1996, the Ariane 5 rocket. This is the ESA's launch. Their maiden flight is a 64-bit floating point number was converted to a 16-bit signed integer by mistake, and the resulting overflow caused an exception, and the rocket self-destructed. 1999 is the Mars Climate Orbiter. This is the United States. Here we had a unit mismatch, English versus metric. And again, the spacecraft crashed on the surface of Mars because it didn't know how high it was. Third is storage integrity. Does your system preserve correctness over time? So think about immutable logs or signed configurations or append-only audit trails or version model registries. And those are the kind of the ways you deal with storage integrity. SolarWinds 2020 was a storage integrity failure. I mean, Trojanized code is inserted into a trusted update path, and then that update is pushed out to customers. 18,000 get hacked. AI is hard to secure here, right? Because AI systems naturally evolve over time, so it makes it especially difficult to think about storage integrity because it's always changing. The fourth is the hardest one to conceptualize. This is contextual integrity. So if you read Helen Nessenbaum, legal scholar, she's at Cornell Tech now or NYU, I forget which one. And her idea is, she writes about privacy, that data flow should respect contextual norms. Like who sent the data, who received it, under what constraints, for what purposes. So this is more than, is the data correct? This is the data being used in a way that people reasonably expect? So your smart speaker listening for its awake word is a context. Your smart speaker being used by the service provider to collect data for ad tracking is another context. Your smart speaker being turned on into an eavesdropping microphone by a government is a third context. The data might be accurate, but the uses violate contextual integrity, and that is a failure. Cambridge Analytica is a contextual integrity failure. Right? So Microsoft is collecting data for one purpose, and then it's being used for another purpose, for political targeting. Also, AIs are spectacular at breaking contextual boundaries. That's what they do, basically. So it's going to make this a hard one. So that's my 4, at least initially. There may be others. And this may be too much, right? Every bug can't be an integrity failure. So I'm still trying to figure out what the box is that integrity lives in. Because if everything is integrity, nothing's integrity, I haven't done anything useful. So to me, at least right now, integrity failures directly affect correctness, system behavior relative to a specific set of properties, auditability, and safety critical outcomes. Like, so a normal bug wouldn't be an integrity failure, only if it's significant in those ways. All this feeds into a more general property that I think of as resilience. Systems that continue to operate correctly in the face of perturbations. And all of the CAA triad contributes to resilience. So I see some people writing about this as moving from fail-safe to safe to fail. I think it's kind of clever. And integrity is a big part of that. One other thing, and I am trying to adjust our language. So we have lots of adjectives for security properties. Available, private, confidential, reliable, secure. There is no everyday word for a system with integrity. Anyone know what it is? So there actually is a word. All right, I haven't done my work yet. You should have heard it before. The word is integrous. This is a word that is not in Webster's Third Dictionary, even the unabridged version. It is in the OED. It's marked as obsolete. It has a recorded use in the mid-1600s. I am bringing the word back. Integrous. You heard it here first. And I'm not just being pedantic, although I guess I'm being a little pedantic. You know, language shapes what we talk about, what we fund, what we measure, what we build. So I think we want to talk about integrous system design. And this is a hard problem. And I think it needs some fundamental research. How do we do it? Again, integrity is not just one thing, it's a bunch of things. Right? How you keep a system inside an envelope of constraints. It involves a bunch of things we already supposed to be doing. Defense in depth, least privilege, cryptographic agility. It's going to be all part of integrity. Integrity requires nuanced authentication. I think way more sophisticated than just who are you. Because the future is very ad hoc in terms of connectedness. And we need to authenticate things as well as people. And thing-to-thing authentication is actually pretty hard. So processes, devices, versions, cloud services. So both things that are doing processing and then also sources need to be authenticated. And with that authentication, granular access control. Who is allowed to modify data and for what purpose? So a whole bunch of common protocols and interfaces. Human-centered interfaces so people know what's happening on their behalf, especially as we move into these autonomous systems. And somehow, and I don't know how, and it might not be possible, a hard separation between content and commands in AI systems. I don't know how we do this, but I think it's going to be essential. We're going to need end-to-end provenance for at scale, and not just data, but inputs, tools, decisions, like who approves it, who reviews it, who signs off on it, what's the policy it refers to. Verifiable inputs, verifiable sensors, whole bunch of boring things here. SBOMs live here. Right? SigStore, that Linux Foundation project for assigning software artifacts, lives here. I mean, anything that tries to produce some sort of provenance for the things that are happening. Continuous data validation, not just at input, but throughout the system. Again, going to be hard with AI systems, but I want verifiable trains of trust from input to processing to output. And I want AI agents to treat external content as hostile by default. Some kind of system assurance, whatever that ends up meaning, and I'm not sure. right, in a way that handles the probabilistic nature of AI systems. Integrity is going to require rethinking recovery. I mean, what does recovering integrity look like? So we know how to recover from an availability failure. Kind of have no idea how to recover from a confidentiality failure. Sometimes you can't. But can we recover from an integrity failure? Quickly, automatically, without making things worse. We're going to need new metrics. How do you measure and test the integrity of a process? Can I define an integrity service level objective, and how could I detect that? Mean time to detect an integrity failure, integrity verification, integrity breach detection. Now, all those things I have no idea how to do, but I think we're going to need to. And finally, we're going to need some kind of governance, some kind of certification system, because none of this happens without accountability. So audits, liability, regulations, like incentives matter here. And this is where the contextual integrity defenses come in. And regulation is how we maintain integrity in a shared spaces. If you don't have integrity in shared spaces, you get pollution, you get fraud, you get disinformation. So there's a very large policy component. I think we can learn a lot from the systems we have to enforce integrity that are fundamentally human. Because we've been building systems for hundreds of years, or thousands, to enforce integrity. Double entry bookkeeping, audits, copy editing, checklists of surgical equipment to make sure nothing's left in your body when we sew you up. These are all integrity systems. The peer review system for academic publishing is an integrity system. Courtroom rules of evidence are integrity systems. Financial reporting rules, even regulations around food and restaurant safety. I think there's a lot to learn from understanding how they work, how they fail, how they're subverted. There's a lot of expertise there that we can pull in to understanding the integrity of computer systems. So that's my research agenda. It is still evolving. I think there's a lot of things that we haven't thought of yet that until we start actually doing the work, we're not going to see them. And while there are a bunch of pieces in place, I listed a bunch of them, putting them together to coherent whole is going to be hard. So we need to figure out how to make integrity an architectural design requirement, and then a life cycle property, and extend it to, untrusted parts, and building controls into the foundation. I kind of wanted to go the same way from an HTTPS, went from banking luxury to baseline expectation. I want integrity to do the same thing. What are the integrity primitives? Is there some zero trust analog for integrity? So step back for a minute and think about this in terms of the evolution of the internet. I think this is this cool way to think about it. So Web 1.0, 90s, early 2000s, it's all about availability. Individuals, organizations are rushing to digitize their content and put it online. And this created the vast repository of human knowledge that we know today. Making information available overshadowed everything else. Web 2.0, the current web, is about confidentiality. Right? That's the read-write web, where your private data needs to remain private. So online banking, e-commerce, social media, anywhere you're an active participant. Confidentiality is paramount, and we built a lot of machinery for it. Web 3.0, distributed, decentralized, intelligent web of tomorrow. Peer-to-peer social networking, distributed data ownership and storage, Internet of Things, AI agents. Right? All of these things require verifiable, trustworthy data and computation. There is no real-time car-to-car communication without integrity. There is no drone coordination. There is no smart power grid. There is no mesh networking. And there are no useful AI agents without integrity. So I've been stating that integrity is the key security problem of this decade. And another context, I talked about this as a research question that rivals the internet. So the internet is created basically to answer this question. Can we build a reliable network out of unreliable parts in an unreliable world? It's the 1960s. And the answer turned out to be yes. It's an availability question. About 10 years ago, I asked a similar question when I would give talks. Can we build a secure network out of insecure parts in an insecure world? And I meant that as a confidentiality question. And the answer seems to be, maybe. So now I want to ask about integrity. Right? Can we build an integrous system out of non-integrous parts in a non-integrous world? The answer isn't obviously yes, but it's not obviously no either. And I think that's the real research question. All right, so I want to bring this into a landing. Simply, I want to say, think about it this way. Confidentiality is about secrets. Availability is about uptime. Integrity is about correctness. That's the way I think about it. Secrets enable privacy. Uptime enables service. And correctness enables trust. Actually, kind of all three enable trust. But when computers suddenly have right access to the world, correctness is paramount. Because encrypting data just locks in errors. And highly available misinformation just amplifies it. And so these are the questions. Where can a system be corrupted? How will we know if it is? What will we do when it is? And who is accountable when it is? So that's integrity, and that's trust, and that's what I think our job is today. All right, thank you. I am happy to take questions, comments, criticisms, food choices.
I have a very simple question which I'm hoping will help to sharpen.
Good. Well, let me get a pen to take notes, because if they're good questions, I need to remember them.
This is not a good question.
It could be a good question. Don't diss your question.
But it's a very simple question. So to sharpen the argument, the word integrous, what is the connotation that goes beyond trustworthiness? They seem quite related. I have some ideas, but I thought maybe...
Yeah, so I did a book on trust in 2014. One of the problems with the word trust is it's got a gazillion different meanings. And depending on how it's used and who's using it. To me, this is social trust. This is not interpersonal trust. It's really about reliability and correctness. So those are the trust properties I'm thinking about. So, we think of it as, what does it mean when you trust your Uber driver? You have no idea who they are. I mean, they could be a mass murderer on their off time. You have no clue. You just know that the system of Uber, because you're both under surveillance and you're competing for star rankings, right, enables that service to be reliable and trustworthy. Like, you can get into a stranger's car, which my mother would say when I was a kid is crazy. So that's the sort of trust I'm thinking of. So integrity is how we assure that a system is reliable and predictable, right, is within the envelope of correctness. So that's my narrow definition of integrity. It is not a moral stance, it's a data stance.
So can I just follow up on that? So I never took Latin in school, but I imagine that integrity relates to coherence and to a system.
I like the word coherence.
Yeah, you use the word system. A system that's integrous or integrity somehow means that the system is whole, that it's not broken down.
Yeah, right. In the sense that it is doing the correct thing, whatever that means. And this is hard to, like confidentiality, the property also refers to the outside world. The database doesn't know about a confidentiality breach. The human knows because that person there knows the thing, and how do they know it? I think integrity has some of those weirdnesses that you really can't judge the property just within the box of the system. You've got to refer to the outside world as well. Very different than like, does the word processor produce italics, which you can just look at inside the system.
But I like the system connotation.
Yeah, I do too. I've always been a systems guy. I think in terms of systems. So yes, I want this sharpened. So I want to talk about this more. So let's not lose this. But right, these are the sort of things we had to figure out. Like, what does this actually mean? We kind of know some things it means, but where the envelope is, I'm still struggling a little bit, because it can't be that it's everything. I mean, that just means it's nothing, and I've done no useful work. Yeah.
And maybe just, I've got two things I want to ask, but one connects directly what James just said and what you say is the main problem, namely to better define what integrity is about. When you start off, you said integrity is all about correctness, but correctness is something very complicated.
Oh yeah,
because
it's
of
super
course you know exactly what's correct and what's not.
I mean, so sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, right? I know that the stop sign is a stop sign. I mean, if it's a political question, that's like contested reality. That's hard. So I want to start with the simpler things.
Yeah, I mean, like subjectively, of course, we know what's correct and what's incorrect, but someone else also knows what's correct and what's incorrect and may not overlap what you think is correct and incorrect.
But sometimes it does. So let's start with the correct time. Let's start with the correct altitude. Maybe we could start with things that have objective truth. See if we can do those. I don't want the inevitable gray areas like you talk about, where we contest what reality is, to make it hard to start with the stuff that's obvious. Like, this table is solid.
Well, that's what this is a good example,
right?
Which I also often use. So, like, for my background as a biologist and neuroscientist, I wouldn't even be so confident that this table is solid. So what makes that table appear solid for wherever your self is, and that skull maybe somewhere, is noisy neuronal data.
Sure,
and,
agreed.
So like the data that we are using are mediated already, and they are mediated in a way like the sensors you really trust. It's your own sensors. I've seen it with my own eyes. I feel it with my own eyes.
And we know how faulty those sensors are.
Yeah. And you also trust the mediation, like the propagation mechanisms between your sensors and wherever you perceive it. But even those transmission channels, you can't really test. So there's no way to shortcut your sensory system, and so all you can do is checking for what James called coherency, or I would call it consistency.
Right, consistency,
So
right.
Exactly. And so if you accept that there is no absolute correctness or no absolute, then you have to replace it with something that's called internal, or which is called consistency.
Yeah, and I'm good with following our consistency, because that feels like the best we can do.
Yeah.
Right, because it's not going to be some human to human moral stance. It's going to be a consistency, like this has worked in the past. Yeah. This is how we're going to react. We're going to act as if the table is solid because that served us well. Yeah. Throughout our lives.
So I call it internal consistency because it's nothing extra. But that leads to my second question, namely, and that's goes a little away from your topic. So that question is, now I'm not sure whether it really relates to integrity, and that's my question for you, whether it does. Mm-hmm. Namely, the fact that AI, as we perceive it today, is relatively new. It overwhelms us. So we deal with systems that have been trained on what we would be calling today like real data, human-produced data, or data that have been. But of course, even those data are mediated. Mm-hmm. They come from somewhere. But and not all of those data are data that are trustworthy in the sense that we've seen it ourselves. So they come in because we've heard them, or someone told us, or something like that. And I bet in the near future, AI systems will no longer be trained only with data that are directly grounded in the real world, but with data that are already AI produced.
So this is a huge problem.
Exactly,
So,
and so let's see, that's what I would be calling like the grounding
Yeah.
problem, and I think it's part of, it's a very
I think it's
important
right.
part of integrity.
I think-
So once we lose grounding, like once we can no longer trace back how like one AI level that relies on a second AI level, and which in turn relies on like some layers later on grounding work.
So this is actually worse than you think. The good research was out of University of Cambridge, and they're showing really good work that AI trained on AI output is worse.
Yeah.
So you think about it, you have a music AI and it produces Mozart. You train it on its output, you get Salieri. You train it on its output, you get like nonsense. I think that's going to be a huge problem going forward. It means a couple of things. It means like pre-2020 internet is incredibly valuable because it's guaranteed human. Right? Pre-2020 Twitter, pre-2020 Facebook, like before AIs did anything, it's incredibly valuable because it's guaranteed human. We don't have a good answer for dealing with AI input into AI systems, but right now, yes, that is really bad. We have so much input problems with AI. Like the reason that AIs are racist and sexist and homophobic is because, like, the internet is, and people are gross, and dealing with that's hard. My guess is there are going to be other paradigms of AI coming, which will work on some of this. But as long as we're training these systems on the average of humanity rather than the best of humanity, we're going to get really lousy output. And so yes, I think that falls into this. What is the quality of your input data? Sometimes it's easier. If it is just a driverless car, I don't have to worry about that as much. I just needed to recognize what objects are, what people are. So it's a different kind of system. But yes, AI's being fed AI output is going to be a huge problem that we're just wrestling with and we have no solution for. So hooray.
So another question sort of that extends this issue of like the terminology, but maybe from a different angle. So you've already said that your conceptualization of integrity is focusing more on correctness as opposed to adherence to a moral code. But I'm wondering what you think about the use of terms by computer scientists that have positive connotations that arguably anthropomorphize AI systems to like the political economic benefit.
Not a fan.
Of AI developers, and I'm coming at this as like a political economist who's more of a social scientist than a computer scientist. We're hoping AIs have integrity so we can trust them. We're hoping to trust AI so we can delegate to them. And then maybe this ends up being about like the critics going away because look, my doctor has integrity, so like they can be a fiduciary. I can have a fiduciary relationship with them. Maybe we're working towards that kind of end. So I wonder if you have questions about the use of this terminology from that angle.
So there's a lot there, and the techies in the room know it's very important to separate the technology of AI from the for-profit corporations selling it. And the notion of an AI that is anthropomorphized, that uses the word I, that is a business decision. That is not inherent in the tech. So yes, I think there's a whole lot of companies using the moral valences in an effort to get you to use them, trust them, give them money, so they can get all the money, which seems like a mistake in society, but I'm not in charge. So yes, there is actual, I think, integrity embedded in there, more about correctness, adherence to whatever values it's supposed to. I mean, that's so not are the values good, but here are the values. Did it adhere to them? So we can imagine an integrous, immoral AI, right? I mean, just given a value system of an evil overlord and it does it faithfully. Great, it has a lot of integrity in terms of reliability and consistency. I think there's gonna be a lot of struggling with all of that stuff on the moral layer. And about 2 weeks ago, right, Anthropic said, they're not going to release their newest model because it's too powerful. Some things you should know: one, they can't release it; they don't have the compute to run it. This is just a convenient excuse. Two, all the other models are just as bad. Three, why the hell does Anthropic get to make that decision about humanity? Like, who elected them anything? And these are the things we're going to struggle with. It's hard. It's the United States. Right? Nothing is regulated. Nothing will be regulated. So there's a lot there. And yes, I think these are really big problems we need to start figuring out.
Yeah, so 2 points. One on the Integris thing. So a funny anecdote is that 2 years ago, Frank Pasquale and I wrote an article and we used the word Integris.
Did you really? Oh my God! Send me the link. Send me the link. You might be first.
The reason was, I would say, maybe like...
Did you know it was an English word? Did you look it up?
Yeah, because I think the problem is starting from a language obstacle, because in Italian, Spanish, we
in French, right. In French it's intègre, but it means moral integrity, at least in French.
Yeah, so from the etymology, I was checking now, because my partner is a Latin literature scholar, so I was
all right, I am totally outclassed here.
Then I was just checking, and basically integris means not touched. From tangere, which just means touching.
Okay.
In means not, and tegris means touched.
Right. Yeah.
Like not perturbed. So.
Yeah, but I don't know if it applies, because you said processing is part of keeping and processing is touching. So,
Yeah, I don't know.
But I don't know. By the way, the reason why we were using integris was because there are the principles in the GDPR, and each of these principles we used an objective. So fairness, fair; lawfulness, lawful.
Right.
And there was one which was storage limitation. We said storage limited. So it was a bit of a
it's hard.
stretch.
Yes.
It was a bit of a stretch, and then integris. But my question was not about that.
But you're going to send me that reference,
Yes,
because I'm totally crediting you from now on.
We will. Actually, there we were talking about integris data, so maybe yours is broader.
But it's still about in the same ballpark.
Yeah. Then my question was more about the trade-off between. I see a trade-off. So I'm a lawyer and I work on policy, law, and technology, and I usually saw this trade-off between fighting market power concentration in the tech economy and security and privacy. What I mean is that when we try to break the monopolies, then there is a risk, or at least they claim that there is a risk of more, integrity risk and privacy risk, because smaller companies do not have the equipment and the capabilities.
You need to know that's a bullshit argument.
That's why I'm bringing this to you, because there's this new challenge now that I'm seeing, and you mentioned agentic AI and AI agents, etc. So I was discussing with Jan about this before. So we have this, in Europe we have this Digital Markets Act, which is really to kind of break the monopolies, etc. And it sets a very large interoperability duty. So gatekeepers like operating system need to provide great interoperability access and duties. Now I'm asking you, do you think there's a risk with agentic AI that this bring interoperability duties can be a door for security and privacy issues?
So in general, monopolies are bad for security and privacy, and breaking monopolies is good.
Yeah,
They will lie to you and tell you, if you break up our monopoly, you'll lose privacy. That is bullshit. Don't listen to them. They ignore them. Laugh at them. It's wrong in any way. I think there is certainly a risk. I mean, the AI systems are going to be easier to break the monopolies because they don't have the same network effects. Like, no one's on Facebook because they want to be on Facebook. They're on Facebook because their friends are on Facebook. And there's a whole monopoly effect. Leaving Facebook means you leave your friends. It's hard. But AI is more like Coke versus Pepsi. I mean, if you don't like OpenAI today, just get an account on Anthropic tomorrow. Right? And it's easy because natural language is the interface. So I think we're going to see more natural monopoly breaking as these models become cheaper. And the models are coming down in price. And people generally don't want the big AI. You want a travel agent, you want a investment counselor, you want a therapist, right? You want specialized AI, smaller. Right now, there are over 2 million open source models on Hugging Face. I mean, a lot of them are toy, and a bunch of them are forks of llama, but it's 2 million open models on Hugging Face. And they're getting better. They're getting a lot better. Right now, about a year behind the state of the art. It seems like the best public models. Remember the Anthropic announcement? That they found all these vulnerabilities in code, and a group in Prague took the results they published and tried to use their public open model and found all the vulnerabilities at 1/100th of the price. So the capabilities are shrinking. So my hope is that this becomes less monopolistic. It all does mean that your controls go away. Anthropic saying we're not going to release the model because we're afraid people will get it is useless in a world where 10,000 people can create the model themselves. And you know that Anthropic's older model leaked. Right? So it doesn't work. So we have to prepare for a world where everyone has the capabilities, and we're not going to control it at the source. I know someone who's running the Chinese model DeepSeek on their phone. It's slow, but it's freaking on their phone. That's a different world. And I don't know if you know the DeepSeek model, the Chinese model, if you go online, you ask about like Tiananmen Square, it knows nothing about it. You download the model, run it locally, it knows all about Tiananmen Square. So all that censorship is not in the AI, it's in the system around the AI in the web interface.
I'm surprised they can censor it.
But it's easy to censor it on the output. I mean, because you're not censoring the AI. And everyone does that. The people who don't know AI don't realize there's an enormous amount of software between what you type, what the AI gets, and between what the AI produces and what you see. It's a huge amount of middleware. And a lot of the removing bias, a lot of the controls happen in that middleware. I don't know if you remember, maybe a year ago, I forget whose AI, one of the AI image generators, when asked to produce images of, I think it was World War II German soldiers, produced a racially diverse set of images. Which doesn't make sense in context, but there are any number of controls to make sure that what the AI produces isn't racist or sexist or homophobic or all the things we don't want it to do. And it's broadly applied. But that's where you got a peek at how it worked in that particular query.
Okay. Maybe we can. You have one more?
Sure, this is fascinating.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, if it's fascinating, come find me afterwards. I'm happy to work with anybody on this kind of thing.
I really liked your example of solving availability.
Mm-hmm.
Can you build a reliable network that unlocks parts? But I think the challenge, obviously, is that it's fundamentally different. AI is fundamentally different, right? So routing packets is sort of like routing water or routing power. You can have redundancy to make the system work. So a big concern about AI, about inference, is, especially for agentic AI and performance-critical context, is normally in engineering, the way we get reliability is by combining independent observations, right? And we just sort of feed down that one.
And some of that's done with AI. We now have multiple agents doing things, arguing with each other.
But this gets back to your earlier point, which is you have to be able to verify the independence of these observations or of these inferences. And I think that's a huge challenge. And so it seems like there's a tension here where we talk about integrity and consistency. So we actually said, well, if it's self-consistent, that's a good thing. But if a bunch of models are consistent, that could be a bad thing. Right? They're just parroting whatever they consume. And we still have this huge probability of error. But we might fool ourselves to think, oh, we have all this corroboration. So do you think about that? I always default to think about how humans do it to start. I mean, this is the problem of echo chambers.
This is the problem of political decisions being made by leaders who have all their advisors think exactly the same way they do. I mean, we know about this problem. It's a known human problem. We know how to solve it. We often choose not to. You solve it through diversity, which is now a bad word in the US, but it is the right answer. That is how you solve these problems. So we're going to need diversity. I think the interesting problem in AI is that the systems are largely the same. It is always surprising to me when you look at the AI leaderboards that all the top models are about the same. Like, that seems implausible, and yet they are. So so we might get AI echo chambers. We're going to need radically different ways of building these systems so they can check each other. Although right now, it seems like the best results come from groups of agents working together. And when I look at some of the AI cybersecurity, there's one agent that finds the vulnerabilities, one agent that verifies them, and third agent that creates the exploit, a fourth that verifies that, and only at the end of the chain do you say, hey, human, I think we have something here. So we're trying to do that, but I do worry about the monoculture. That even though we have multiple companies, there does seem to be a monoculture in the tech. Everyone's using transformers in the same way. They're all using the same training data. So don't know, but yes, I do worry about that.
Time for more questions. All right, we can thank.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Turns out you're an easy train ride from my house, so just give me an hour's notice, I could come up. So anything good happening, you should tell me.